Hi everyone. Following on from the first Freiburg undercover interview, which now has well over 100,000 views, including the mirrors, and is translated into 2 or 3 other languages, it's time we publish the second one. In Freiburg, the Fridays for Future's climate change gang that love government scriptures are super big, organising large regular marches in one of the richest first world utopias, because they think the world will end soon due to man-made CO2, scaring the hell out of children and good honest working families. They love some climate change mind control in Freiburg, even if it's raining. Even the gays have created Queers for Future, taking the government scriptures up the you-know-what. I wanted to find out who was arranging these marches, and I did a bit of digging around and got some correspondence moving, and guess what? And you really won't believe it, the leaders and organisers were late teens school children. Now this dude, Moritz, is the main dude who came to the interview. Again, I used the alias of David from Oxford. My girl came along for support, and David brought a girl along too, who was also from Fridays for Futures. The whole interview was over 90 minutes, so I cut it down to just share the interesting points. So the first 20 minutes they said they believed CO2 causes climate change due to the IPCC document, which they didn't know was a UN document funded by the World Bank. They thought it was a government scripture from independent scientists. They couldn't actually name one scientist they knew or any specific scientific method tests or experiments. They simply kept referring to this document. They had no explanation for how the world's average temperature was achieved. They couldn't debunk independent scientists like Dr. Motoko Nakamura and Dr. Mark Imicides, who have good data presenting that CO2 can't really create climate change. They didn't know you could buy CO2 generators on Amazon, and that they are used all over the farming industry. They had no answer for the non-increase in any sea levels anywhere. They didn't know that each country's mainstream told the people of their nation that their temperatures were heating up more than others. Australia, Russia, Arctic, Tibet, Alaska, Korea, Britain, Spain, Finland, Canada, Sweden, all getting hotter than anywhere else. So let's pick it up from here. As I said earlier, the hockey stick chart is kind of hard to hang our hat on because of the way they measured temperatures before 1958, just looking at ice core. So there's a lot of scientists questioning this data, but they're not getting into these magazines and these journals.
I think it's just about the publishers of the magazines and stuff. They like the publishers, they decide what they're going to publish, so they publish what they think.
I don't think a lot of publishers do that. I don't think they publish what they think, but that's another subject, which we'll probably come to later. With, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, they've came out recently and said energy bills should rise 43%. What do you agree with that? What's your view on that?
Well, CO2 is causing destruction, and this destruction has a price.
But wouldn't it be easier, instead of paying money, wouldn't it be easier to go and smash up all the CO2 generators of the greenhouses?
Yes.
Sure.
I think they probably were talking about normal energy production, coal energy and this all that bad stuff, but I don't think green energy prices should rise.
Okay.
They should
They should
actually.
sink,
I
yes.
think so too. They should fall.
And do you know much about the IMF, what they've done?
No, not at all.
Okay. They've sort of destroyed a few countries like Greece by taking over infrastructure, giving countries loans they can't pay back. The IMF, from my research, is a very, very toxic entity, but you'd have to do your own research on that. They sort of sit behind the central banks and their printing of money. Okay, the World Bank, another entity that I'm not too fond of, said we should be pricing in CO2 emissions for like 82 billion. It's a bit like the pay, put more on the bills, but they're saying put it on your cars and everything else and get $82 billion. Do you think this is a good thing?
The money raised should not go to the World Bank or to any banks or governments. It should go directly into environmental protection.
Sure, but if the money will be taxed, it will go to the governments. Do you trust them to put it back into renewable energy?
No.
Because I can tell you now, this is factual, the government's tax, when they get taxed, they actually pay the central banks on interest they've had on loans. So a lot of the tax doesn't come back.
Yes.
Okay. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, the chief, Scott Pruitt, he was on CNBC in March. He said he doesn't believe CO2 is a main driver of climate change. He said, it's just a quick sentence, I think measuring with precision activity on the climate is something very challenging to do, and there's tremendous disagreement about the degree of impact. So no, I would not agree it's a primary contributor to the global warming. What would you say to this head of the Environmental Protection Agency? You would say science exists that proves him wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, another article I want to show you. It's not really an article, these are things that happened. In the last 100 years, there's been a lot of 1902 disappearing glaciers. There's been a lot of scares in the world. These are them all listed. And in the past 100 years, there's been four major, the Earth's warming up, freak out. And there's been four major, there's an ice age coming, it's getting colder, freak out. So this has happened many, many times in history. There's another one here. In 1972 was the big one, new ice age coming. Early 70s, they were really pushing another ice age. I think the front of Time magazine in the 80s also did another ice age. So it seems in the last 100 years, the mainstream media have been flipping between it's going to warm up, it's going to cool down, it's going to warm up, it's going to cool down. So there's like a pattern, it's kind of strange. What would you say to this information, which is easily verifiable in these mainstream publications?
Is it, maybe it's verifiable in publications, but is it verifiable in science?
I would say none of it. I would say it's possible that none of it's verifiable by science because none of it happened.
Well,
yes, but climate change is happening right now.
Climate change is happening every moment. It's called the weather, we could say. I mean, the weather is climate change.
There is a big difference between the weather and the climate.
Okay, what changes have you seen?
What changes? Trees dying because they don't get enough water.
And I've seen...
it's raining all day.
It's raining all day. Well, that's something we had...
It rained all summer in Germany.
No, it didn't.
No, it doesn't.
It didn't.
It was one of the driest summers in the last few...
Oh, I disagree. I was in Germany all summer. There was tons of rain.
I mean, I have been in Germany 3 weeks of summer, and I had 3 weeks of rain in Norway. When I see climate changing, my grandparents live on a small island, southern USA.
Yeah.
And they had been hit by hurricanes heavily since 2013, like on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
They had immediately been hit by Matthew in 2015, I think, and by the earlier before in earlier times, that's proven too because you can just see when the hurricanes hit special things and how many hurricanes have been there. It's like it's coming more and more hurricanes.
Sure. And you're 100% this is to do with man-made CO2?
Not only man-made, I wouldn't say it's only man-made CO2, but there's something changing in our atmosphere and on our world that's causing this climate change. And I mean, it has been there every time since we know there have been climate changes. But I think the man-made climate change is just it's pushing the natural climate change even more.
Okay. Do you know anything about sunspot cycles known as solar minimum and solar maximum?
No.
I've heard some stuff about it, but
Okay, yeah. Every 12 years or so, or 22 years, can't remember off the top of my head, there's a lot of sunspots, then there's not a lot of sunspots. I can verify this, but you'd have to verify it yourself. This is a real phenomena that's very measurable. There are a lot of people out there in the world, who I've interviewed as well, who believe climate change is to do with sun cycles, to do with solar minimum and solar maximum. There are people now who believe we're actually coming into another cooler period, and that the climate, these extra hurricanes and things you see, this sort of climate change we're all seeing is actually to do with the sun. And that there's and we could call it a conspiracy, that the governments and other bodies don't want us to know this. What would you say to that sort of theory, that the sun is causing climate change?
I don't think that some small spots on the sun, I've actually seen them some years ago.
You've seen them?
I've seen
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
And I don't think those small spots can cause any big differences in how much energy from the sun is getting to the Earth,
Okay,
in the Earth atmosphere.
okay. Just staying on the sun quickly, you obviously believe the sun's 93 million miles away?
Yes.
Just to clarify that for the record. Sure. Okay. What evidence did, just being a pure journalist, what evidence did you base that on, that the sun's 93 million miles away? What instruments have measured that, or have you ever looked into it?
Satellites are measuring the distance.
How would they do that?
Because they know like how
Triangulation.
NASA sends
You can only
satellites.
do triangulation if you've got two of the three things, like the diameter. It's hard to do triangulation without anything, because you don't know the size.
I think it's. I mean, NASA sends satellites everywhere, and they're sending satellites on a very regular basis to Sun, and collecting data from them, like how long do they need to travel.
You're talking about the SDO and the SOHO satellites. They're the main sun
I
measurement
have
satellites.
actually no clue how they are called, but I know that NASA is sending satellites on a regular basis.
Just to be pure journalist again, you say you know NASA is sending satellites to the sun. Do you really know that?
I mean, I have been at NASA base in Cape Canaveral.
Sure, I know the place.
I mean, it's proven there. They have all that footage of the sun. And how would you get all the footage of sun and all that stuff if you don't send satellites there?
If you study it's called Solar Ham website, which is NASA's main sun satellite website. If you look at the images of the sun and their quote-unquote solar flares, it's through a lot of filters. It's not enough for me to hang my hat on and say there are satellites in space. It's measuring the sun.
I mean, I have seen several rocket launches.
Sure. But you don't know that they've gone into space. You've seen something go in the sky. That's what you've seen with your eyes.
Yeah.
So what I do as a journalist, my style of journalism, I try and work out where's the belief and where's knowledge. So we're working on belief there.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
going to space.
But like, if you can say that, we can also say like all stuff that's proven by physics.
If you are using this argument, there is no knowledge.
No, there is knowledge.
No,
still
super right. That's super right. Yeah.
But if you're using that argument, there is no knowledge.
Knowledge is
there's
pure
uncertainty.
knowledge.
There's uncertainty everywhere.
Sure, but pure knowledge
What's
is only
knowledge?
through experience. That's the only pure knowledge you can get.
Sure. So my knowledge would be, I talk to you right now, and I can eat an apple without dying.
Sure, that's knowledge.
That's knowledge. Yeah. So
and if you stop breathing, you're going to struggle in 2 minutes. That's knowledge.
How do you say that? Have you ever tried it out?
Yeah, underwater. Another question, which is going to seem a little bit radical, might seem a bit strange to you. You believe in the ozone layer exists?
I think it does, but it's not there we go again with we believe, but we can't prove it. It definitely exists.
You also believe in the ozone layer, you don't know.
How do we know? I mean, there we could just come with your argument of we don't know.
How do we know anything?
Through experience.
Through experience.
And scientific methods.
No man had been out there, walking on the ozone layer and feeling it, because it's simply impossible.
Sure.
I'd
You
say
can't
it's
walk on a gas.
Yeah, you can't walk on a gas.
Okay, I just want to ascertain for the interview that the ozone layer is a belief and that the sun being 93 million miles away is a belief. Can we all agree with that?
Yes.
Well, then this.
But yeah, we can fall into nihilism.
Yes.
Yeah. So what we're doing some faith-based beliefs.
Yes.
Yeah? Like with the CO2, we're saying these scientists proved it, but we weren't there with them doing the experiments.
Sure, but
So talk to some of them.
We talked to some of them, but we weren't there doing the experiments. So I just want to agree we're doing faith-based beliefs.
Sure, but that's all normal humans do.
It is what most humans do.
It's like what everybody does.
It
it's not a
isn't.
scientist.
I actually know a lot of people that don't, but a lot of people do. Yeah. Okay. Another quick question? Do you know the Smithsonian Institute?
No.
Okay, they're saying there's a very bad group of people behind climate denial, climate change denial. The Smithsonian Institute I've covered in one of my documentaries online. It's too long to go into now, but they are very much proven to lie and cover things up many times. Okay, what would your views be on... There were a lot of articles 2017 and more recently about scientists saying we want to spray the sky to block the sun to help climate change. And I could show you 10, 20 of these articles. This is recent, it's 2 years old. US scientists' law's biggest solar geoengineering study.
Auch in der Zeit in Deutschland. Ja.
This is last year, first geoengineering experiment to dim the sun on track for 2019. What would you say to the powers that be spraying the sky to help climate change? Would that be something you would be happy for them to do?
Not especially. Some geoengineering methods are actually pretty good, I think.
Which
but,
ones?
For example, filtering out CO2 out of the atmosphere and...
We just do that with trees though, can't we?
Yeah, we can, but...
we can't on the one hand...
The natural methods are still better than technical methods.
Okay.
I mean, on one hand, we can filter our CO2 by plants, and we can plant more trees.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we're just like taking down trees and rainforests, like just as we want. But I won't say that.
Would you be happy for this to happen? Spray the skies to block the sun?
No.
No.
Have you ever heard of the word chemtrails? Have you ever heard of this term?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And what does this bring to mind when you hear this term? Like conspiracy or something like this?
I don't believe in it, and I don't think that it has to do anything with the climate topic or the climate movement.
Sure, I totally understand that opinion. What if I told you that chemtrails were real and they spray Freiburg almost every day for the past 4 months?
I don't believe it.
What if I told you I could prove it to you in 2 days, in about 4 hours of your time? What would you say to that?
I still don't believe it.
That's good, it's good to be skeptical, but I could prove it to you, and I'm happy to spend the time to prove it to you, that they've been doing this for a long time. What would you say if I could show you 10 of these patents on US patents where they've actually did the patents for spraying the sky? And I could send you the patents for the US military that said they have the actual technology for spraying the sky. So you don't believe something there's patents for? But you were believing in stuff earlier that there's no real evidence, but now you're not believing in stuff there's patents for.
Is Google real evidence?
This patent can be found on another way.
But it's the same. You haven't read the IPCC report.
Yeah, but I could say you haven't read
It's
the
the
chemistry
main.
scientists.
It's the main work
It's
about
government,
climate.
but it's linked to government.
It's scientists.
It's government.
Patents are linked to governments too.
Sure.
Besides the US military, it's just governments.
Guys, but you can be sure that everything we can read is
everything is
checked by the
based-
government.
Sure.
Check. So China doesn't have the same access to information that we have, but why should we have every information? Do you really believe that? Do you really believe we have
No, I
access
don't.
to
Not at all.
every information?
Not at all.
Right, that's really, really good. And questioning us is super, super important. I needed
Yeah, it's
at
really
least
important.
1 year to get here beside him. I needed at least 1 year, yeah? You should not go out and not questioning us. Just do it. And it's really important, yeah? And I really appreciate you do all the stuff in your age. That's super great. But please don't get on the train of everything which is in Google and everything which is there is super right only because it's there. It's just very dangerous.
Yeah, but then you're saying everything from the government's right and everything on Google's not. So
No, I don't.
So then we've got to get to where I am, where we don't believe anything unless we really know.
They say as it's getting warmer, the fish are coming.
The fish and the birds are going crazy, yeah? But this lends theory to what I was saying earlier about the sun, solar minimum, solar maximum, because this helps affect electromagnetics. The weather, heat and cold, doesn't really affect electromagnetics. Solar maximum, solar minimum has a lot of weight behind it, and I think if you're walking down the street with 5,000 people behind you waving placards, I think you need to cover every single bit of information.
I wouldn't say that.
I would.
I'd say we can, when we walk down there, it's our choice how much information we take behind us. It's our choice.
Especially which information.
Which information also we believe in.
I think marching down the road with 5,000 people behind you and a lot of scared kids on beliefs is really dangerous. Really dangerous.
Maybe I come here to the point. My colleagues told me about the demonstration, and they go in their classrooms and tell the kids, you only have 10 more years to live. The kids go crazy, like they sit in a circle, come up with, oh guys, we have to save the planet because we only have 10-15 years to live. What do you think, what kind of trauma that creates in their minds?
A lot of drama, right?
It's wrong
to do that.
It's definitely wrong to do that. I wouldn't fix myself on a date. Just like, no, we can't say.
But this is what the climate crisis advertises with, right? I mean, 10-15 years more, it's everywhere, you can read it everywhere, people talk about that.
Actually, I don't believe in that.
And then it's about the demands and politicians.
Some months ago, BBC said something, you say we have 12 more years, make that 18 months. I think, what shall I do with that number? Shall I go scared and go fly to my favorite destinations? What shall that lead to? I don't see that.
But climate anxiety is very real.
Sure it is.
Do you think that's a healthy thing to give people motivation?
Kinda, yes. But I also think it's not only... I should not pass on to them my fear. I should not tell them only my fears. I should tell them, I'm scared, but go look for yourself whether you gonna be scared for it or not.
And you're scared because you believe CO2 warms the atmosphere?
Yes.
Believe?
Yeah, because I believe what I'm reading and what I'm finding.
You believe the government... Okay, so let's just get this fixed. You read a government scientist document and you got scared and you believe it?
I personally didn't read the IPCC, whatever, myself, but I've been into climate stuff quite a lot, and I've followed like all different kind of scientists, and that's my point. Like, I simply can't believe that like U.S. scientists, German scientists, Chinese scientists, that they are all funded by the same government. Because
I'm a scientist.
Sure, I know.
We're all scientists. Okay. We won't go more into 5G because I got proof that loads of birds fall out of the sky and die. This is 10 gigabits a second. This is, I think it's like 70, 80 gigahertz. There's military weapons that work on 90 gigahertz. This, for me, is a very thing you should really look at, 5G and the chemtrails. At the moment, it won't seem like they're linked to climate change. From my research, they're very linked. Have you come across, okay, a lot of trees are being chopped down for 5G as well, because 5G works on 200 meter, 300 meter cycles, yeah?
That's
what they're doing, you know, this is that Gale woman, Extinction Rebellion, she's linked to all this. They're chopping down the trees because 5G doesn't go through trees.
Sure.
This is, and what I see the official mainstream climate change movement, the Greta and everyone, no one mentions 5G, and I find that really strange.
That's wrong, actually. For I know in the...
It's very tangible. It's one thing that's tangible. We can see it. We know it's happening.
In the one of the WhatsApp groups I mentioned earlier, like the Baden-Württemberg group, there came up like massive 5G debating groups out of that. I actually left that group because it was like not helpful information for me, and I decided I'll go into that topic when I have enough time to like really spend the time on it.
Because this is really climate, this is around us, it's what's the climate around me when I walk down the road.
Which is through us and in us and around us and above us.
Have you come across, okay, we talked about this UN document called Transforming Our World 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development?
Some parts of it, yes.
Yeah, partly.
And this is something you support and you're happy with, you like this?
I personally don't have enough information on it
Me
to
neither.
have a strong opinion on it.
And the UN, at the moment, you see them as good people who care about the people and want the best for the world?
No.
No.
Okay, that's a step forward.
I mean, I've been at the Model United Nations conference in Den Haag several years ago. I feel like they could do a lot of good stuff, but they are not doing it right now. They much need to change.
Okay, this is an interesting document, and if you read between the lines and you do a bit more digging from my research in journalism, the powers that be, shall we say, want smart cities by 2030. Have you heard of smart cities? So with the 5G network, no one needs 10 gigabits a second. No one needs to download a film in 3 seconds. So what they're doing is, do your own research. I mean, what they're doing is they want these cities smart. So everything's online. So you open the fridge and you get a micropayment. You put the kettle on, you get a micropayment. Because your money thing's not going to be around in a few years. They're going to be a digital token.
Sure.
So this whole thing, this UN document about sustainable development isn't really about CO2 or climate, it's about getting everyone into smart cities.
More technology, yes.
More technology.
More energy.
Yeah.
Sustainable.
Yeah, not at all.
This is also linked to the climate change world, but to build that bridge, we'd be here all day. Just saying, this is a part of the jigsaw and it's worth doing a bit of research on. Let's have a little chat about this little girl, Greta. And you like what she does, she's a figurehead for your thing.
I personally, I like her ideas. I like what she stands for. But I personally think she's too much, and she's like the videos she did with the Scientists for Future and stuff, and also her last speech. I think she's done too much, and it's not only good for the movement.
I think there's way too much focus on Greta.
Yeah, and only on her.
Do you think she's
in
organic?
German we call that Personenkult.
Okay.
Person cult,
Yes.
Yeah, cult personalities.
Yes, and I think that's wrong.
Do you think she got to where she is organically?
What do you especially mean by organically?
I mean, yeah.
Auf einem normalen, natürlichen Wege. Or what is the way she made to be there where she is?
I think it's just like, actually I think everybody of us could be in her position, because she was simply the first one starting it with her Friday strikes and not going to school. So I'd say everybody could be there, so it's kind of a natural way.
You believe it's natural. She's often seen with a German woman called Marie Nuber. You might have heard of her. She's often seen with her a lot, and she's quite the German face of activism, climate.
Isn't she the leader of Fridays for Future in Germany?
I believe
There
so,
is
could
no
be,
leader.
yeah.
There is no leader of Fridays for Future.
But she's always around it.
Okay.
What would I say?
That's again the thing about the Personenkult, the
Yeah.
cult about person, and we try to organize everything from
a group of people, so there's not a single person standing for
there's
Fridays
no
for
hierarchy.
Future.
We try to
Sure.
have no hierarchy.
Like
at all.
Extinction Rebellion.
I don't actually know their system of doing that, but
Okay, with Greta, she was seen with Trump the other day. It was made to look like an accident. They were in the same room together. Did you see that video?
No.
Okay, this looked very staged to me from my years of research. It looked very staged, how they were in the same room together, how she had this scowl on. And with her recent speech, do you think that was pure from the heart or she was acting?
I'd say both.
I believe it was scripted.
Yeah, I think it's kind of from... I think she did not write the speech completely on her own, because actually I know her English is not. I think her English will not be enough to write that stuff. I mean, sure, Sweden is pretty well in English and all that stuff, but I'd say she's not only on her own. So she's people behind herself.
Yeah.
That's
This Marie Nuber, she is also a front person for an organisation called the One Foundation. Have you heard of these people?
no.
Well, when you dig about who funds the One Foundation, it's George Soros and Bill Gates. And I don't know if you know those guys. Do you know George Soros? No?
But I know Bill Gates.
It'd be
Bill Gates.
really, really in your interests to check this guy out, George Soros, and follow the trail from my level of research. Because this for me this is like an agent. This is like put in. This Greta thing's has become an archetype. I mean, she's on the front of GQ magazine. This is how crazy this has got. But you have to do your own research. Putin said the other day it's very sad that there are groups controlling her and using her. Is this something Putin said? You can watch him say this.
I don't trust a dictator.
I think there's just as many dictators in Europe. They just hide it a bit better.
Sure.
With the marches you do, and there's a lot of people turning up, what's the action? Say you get 5, 10, 20,000 people. Is there an action for all these people when they go home at the end of the day?
They get a kind of
A leaflet or something?
yes.
Yeah, they get brochures from us, but I think it's in their responsibility. So I personally try to do my very best in changing my life and my attitude, but we can't change them. That's something the theater of Freiburg a long time ago.
What sort of changes in the leaflet or articles are you trying to trigger in them?
Like we show them that it's not good, like to go to McDonald's like right after demonstrations and stuff like that. So we try to show them that, especially cows, but also meat in general, is not helpful for climate and stuff like that. Plastic.
Okay. Do you think the marches for some people just appeases a bit of guilt inside them, and then they go home and they feel they've done good because they were part of the march? You know,
Sometimes,
something
yeah.
subconscious, like just a guilt fix. Because you're in this, Freiburg's like, you know, it's one of the richest cities in the world, let's say.
No.
Everyone's living quite well.
Oh, it is.
It is.
It is.
Have you been
Yeah.
around the world? I mean, it is.
Stuttgart is
Yeah.
I think has a few years ago has
Top
been
10?
the second richest spot in whole Europe. So Europe is quite rich.
Well, yeah,
when
Europe
you
Europe
go.
is rich, yeah.
You know, when I
But-
see this first world utopia, people paying, you know, $600-700 a month rent, and they walk down the
Yes.
road. I
Yeah,
care
that's
about the
true.
world. It's like a
That's
guilt fix sometimes.
Yes.
Still, I totally get your point of going on the streets. I have to support that. I mean, there are some people just sitting at home doing nothing, just don't care. I see you guys totally care. I think it's the way. How would I care? What would I believe? And how would I be responsible for other people, like for thousands of other people following what kind of ideas? That's what I say to that point. But yeah.
I think it's interesting to get so many people marching on the street based on faith-based beliefs. Because if we look at what faith-based belief is, it's religious. That's what faith-based belief is. I find it strange how so many people can believe in something without anything tangible.
Well,
Like satellites, the sun being so far away,
Sure.
the CO2 is warming up the planet. I haven't actually, when we go out, we don't see anything tangible like CO2 is warming up the planet, but we do see 5G and we do see spraying in the sky. They're real things that are happening.
we can also argument like then we can go to school for especially math, biology, all that stuff. It's also only based on beliefs. Beliefs they say they have proven, but
Math.
maybe in 100 years.
Math is also, you can do scientific method, you can do some maths with algebra and
If you have
it works.
one apple, another apple, then
You have two
two
apples,
apples. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Well,
It's a system.
it's a system. Somebody
Yeah.
just invented and says this is two.
But
This
it's
is what we call
tangible.
two.
But it's tangible because it's repeatable,
yeah,
measurable.
climate change.
In math,
So it's
tangible.
scientific
math and
method.
some other chemistry, biology, some, but it's stuff like Relativitätstheorie.
The theory of relativity.
Yeah, for me it's been debunked
But
It's stuff, well,
in certain respects.
it's stuff we just can't prove for ourselves.
Sure. So then things like, let's pick gravity. It's a faith, but if you go to any university around the world and you ask prove gravity, no one can do it.
okay, sure. I would like to come back to this. What you just mentioned is, you say climate change is tangible too, but you couldn't explain before how we can measure the actual average of the temperature on the Earth. I'm going to my 30s now, 28. I'm a teacher, and I could say I don't know how and I don't know if. I could rather say that than saying yes, it is, but I couldn't describe how. I think that's an important point, maybe.
Well, I have to say one thing. I'm just a teen, I'm not a scientist.
You're right.
I have not collected decades of experience, and there are people who did that, and I think it would be better if you asked them.
And I have asked a lot of these people.
That's good.
And at the end of the day, no one really knows.
Sure.
It's a lot of smoke and mirrors. So when you dig, this is my full-time world. I'm an independent journalist, is what I do. When I dig and dig and dig into these subjects, and I think I'm getting to the tangible thing, there's nothing there.
Sure.
Yeah, but that's with everything then.
No, it's not with everything. If I say, oh, Porsche making cars, I go to the Porsche garage and I see them make the cars. Go, oh yeah, Porsche making cars.
Yeah, but you're seeing the trees dying here. You're seeing
it's
the...
autumn.
No, you see trees
Yeah,
dying.
yeah, chemtrails will explain that.
That's the truth.
Also, the new LED lights they put everywhere to help the climate. The new LED lights are hiding 5G antennas inside them, so it's highly possible a lot of the trees near 5G are dying. I can send you loads of information on this.
I can't say anything about 5G because I'm not into that theme.
But if you have such a big interest in the climate, 5G is very climatey, isn't it? It tastes like climate because it's affecting the energy around us.
Just a little question for you. Are you trying to ask us something and get our opinion, or are you trying to tell us your opinion?
I'm doing that. I'm just having a discussion about these very important subjects. So I believe 5G does affect the climate. So for me, it's strange that you don't look at 5G.
I would look up 5G if I would just have the time.
Okay.
I'm short of time.
But if you're marching down the street with 10,000 people behind you and you're helping arrange this, you should find the time for things all about the climate.
I have not been into our group meetings since May because I had no time. And
you
I
have
was
time, but you
sickly.
choose what to do with your time. It's not. No one has no time. You have lots of time, but you prioritize.
I have time to go to school. I can't
You don't have to go to school.
We have to go to school. It's the law. We have to follow the law.
You don't have to follow the law.
If we don't, the police is coming to us and
Yeah.
actually taking us to school.
So
with them.
yeah,
Really?
we're in Germany. We can't go. We cannot not go to school. It's impossible.
Right, that's another topic. But okay, one question. Do you think I will read you maybe a small text. Believe in this is something someone said. Believe in climate change is almost like a new religion. You believe exactly the kind of indoctrination they used to believe under the Catholic Church. Here you were born into a sin, and if you don't pretend, you will burn forever in the eternal fire. Yeah, the climate change religion says that you were born sinful because you, oh God, are actually made out of carbon. You breathe out carbon dioxide. You are such a sinful being. This is quite extreme, I have to say. But do you think that leaders up there, they want us to be a free, healthy? It's good for their interest for us to be free, healthy, free-speaking, open-minded, free to travel, free to express. Do you think that's healthy for their interests?
You're talking about like governmental interests?
Governmental interests,
or
maybe even higher.
Okay. Maybe it is, maybe not. I'm not sitting in government, so I can't say what definitely are their interests. So.
Maybe there's no answer, but what do you believe? What do you think? What do you internally feel? Do you think our interest, our personal freedom, is in their interest?
At some point, yes. At some point, not. There is no clear answer, I'd say, to that. Because it's depending on the politician we're talking about.
Okay, so you just heard the text I read. What do you think about that? What's coming in your mind about that?
I am a Christian. I'm strongly believing Christian, and I can totally understand the person you just quoted. So I'd agree to that, but again, we're talking about believing here, so we just can't fix ourselves.
I think what I would say, getting towards the end now, is like, if you believe, quote unquote, CO2 is warming the atmosphere, I think it's really important. You've got a list of scientists and experiments and instrumentation you can speak about at any time and just rattle off all those facts. And you know this scientist, and you've spoken to him and maybe met him, and you've got close to these experiments. Because otherwise, you're working on belief, which is religious, and you are a religious person. So it's again faith-based beliefs. And for me, it's a little dangerous when there's a lot of scared kids and scared families.
Sure it is.
So just get the knowledge, yeah?
Yeah, I know.
Because there's a lot of kids really scared out there.
I know that for me personally, that's not my intention to scare the kids.
They're going to be scared. If you say the world's going to change and there's big problems and
I
loads
did
of people
not.
are going to die.
I personally never said that, and I.
But you believe
don't,
if CO2 emissions don't reduce, that people will die.
I believe that, but
Yeah,
I also believe
that's scary for kids.
I also believe that God said Jesus will come back and our earth will come to an end.
Revelation. You know Revelation well?
Yes.
You believe Revelation is literal?
Yes, I do.
You really believe it's a literal thing?
What exactly do you mean by literal?
You believe word for word it explains a future reality?
Yes, I do.
Okay, with like a 5-headed dragon and all the other things, the whore, scarlet whore. Okay.
And I do because I saw part of it myself.
Okay. I don't want to get into metaphysics because we could be there for hours and hours. Here's
Yeah,
something.
I think we have to go quite
we just
soon.
do one more minute?
I'm sorry, no.
Just one more minute, if I may, just out of respect.
Okay.
Someone I interviewed recently sent me this. I'm interviewing with a broad range of people. He's saying it's a man-made climate change hoax, and here are all the pieces, and it's heading towards 5G smart grids. What would you say to this? Something like this? Would this be something you would be entertaining to research, or you would just rule it out as conspiracy?
I would rule it out as conspiracy because we are the activists. I don't get any money from any
Yes, we don't get any.
5G stuff. I don't support it. I, until now, don't have a big opinion on it, but I do not support it personally.
What about smart meters in the house? You know the smart meters?
I don't support it too. More technology is never a sustainable option.
Do you believe there's a link between the climate change movement in the media and smart grid? Do you believe they're completely separate subjects?
Between the media and this and the other thing, yes, but not between climate change.
Obviously the 5G, smart grid, Internet of Things stuff is bad for the climate, but I don't believe there is a direct link between climate activism and the industry behind.
Okay, but I spoke to you about Gail Bradbrook, and I've got factual information.
Have information on that. Apparently there are people who want to go in this room.
But Gail Bradbrook is leading Extinction Rebellion, and she has links to the telecoms companies.
Okay, I don't have information on it.
I do. I can share it with you.
But would you hide from that information if you know this information is somewhere accessible, or would you hide from it, or would you just say?
I don't want to look at it.
Someone's calling me.
Yeah.
Anna?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're waiting for us actually.
Yeah.
So we should get on.
It's a shame how you don't want to talk about this more, but I understand.
I would want more, but
because you're not going to meet someone like me again, and that's not ego.
How do you say that? You don't know how many people are there.
No, but
not many people can question it and are brave enough to question things which are from mainstream media, led by mainstream media. It's a shame today to question things that are meant by everyone, yeah? That's a shame.
Sure. I know
it's
that.
Like people mention it as a shame.
But also people mention Christianity as a shame. It's the same.
To be honest, my goal to be here is not that you go out with another opinion. It's for me to shake your opinion as well as my opinion has been shaken. That doesn't mean I agree with everything. I jump on every new idea. It's not about that, but you can be shaken, and that's okay.
Yeah,
Just be open for it.
I totally am, as you said.
I think-
you said earlier, I'm questioning things.
Yeah, I think you guys are
I
great
won't
people.
skip.
You've got beautiful hearts. You want the world to be better, like we all do. But I just don't think you have enough knowledge to be marching down the street.
We are
But
teens, we are
we-
just
yeah,
teens.
that's-
But then you shouldn't be marching down the street arranging big marches because you don't have the knowledge. It's dangerous.
we have the knowledge we have.
You
We
don't have enough. You really-
26,000 scientists behind
don't-
us.
And actually, right now,
Well,
you're talking to two of
I
our group.
have to go now.
Yeah, we have to go, and there are many other people. You can go, maybe find another person from our
Yeah.
group.
Thanks.
There's thousands like you.
Yeah.
It's like copy and paste. Yeah? In every city in Europe.
And off they went to cry into a frappuccino latte in some hipster cafe with their green hair friends. One thing to know is all around European cities they are cutting down trees for what they say is for new bicycle lanes. But if the climate narrative was real, there is no way they would cut down trees. They are cutting them down for 5G, as 5G protects and digests EMF. Another thing I want to share is about a great man called David Bellamy, who died last week. When I was a child, he was a personality on TV, sharing his love and knowledge of plants and the earth. I never really thought as to why he just disappeared off TV a decade or so ago. I thought maybe he just retired. But then last week I found this from 2010.
We are now, if you look at the real data, which is the sunspots and the sun, we are heading for 30 damn cold years, and they've already started.
So that's your theory, that it is the sun, the activity of sunspots, that causes the rise in temperature?
Absolutely, not my theory. A theory of about 34,000 damn good scientists.
So you can predict the cycles of sunspots, and therefore you can predict when it's going to get warmer and when it's going to be colder?
Yeah, because there are cycles. And when we don't have any sunspots, that means we don't have those gaping plumes of energy coming from the sun, we get colder. And when we do have them, we get warmer.
I've got a page from the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And it says carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide have increased markedly as a result of human activity since 1750 and now far exceed pre-industrial values. And it goes on. And there are volumes and volumes and volumes of this stuff, penned by eminent scientists who all say that you're wrong and they're right.
And there are many, many scientists, and I say 34,000 who don't believe in it. And no, there is nothing on the media about it. You hear one side of the argument, you never hear the other side. Since when I've been banned off television. You haven't seen me on television
I haven't, no.
you for a long, long time. Why?
Do you think it's because you are challenging the modern orthodoxy?
Yes, we have an orthodoxy here, and if you step out of that line, and it wasn't me, just me, I mean, they sacked Julian Pettifer, they sacked Robin Page, and they are just conservationists.
One funny thing is, if you threaten the climate change narrative, people think you don't care about pollution. Pollution and plastic are big problems, and both nothing to do with climate change, but people lump it all together. Pollution and plastic problems are caused by big corporations, and very little to do with what sort of straw you use to suck your frappe latte mocha hipster €5 coffee with. The world should simply ban plastic tomorrow. Climate change is only really aimed at left-wing white Europeans to create even more self-hatred and guilt. I mean, just go to Asia or Africa, nobody really mentions climate change, no marches, plastic heaps, plastic oceans. So marching around Freiburg with your €1,000 rent your dad in Hamburg pays for, taking selfies with your €1,000 Chinese slave camp iPhone doesn't really mean anything or do anything. You just look like a bunch of lemons. Now ask yourself why you don't see any of this leftist climate change government scripture worshippers why you don't see them preaching to the migrant Islamic families about having 5 or 6 children. You see, it's all an echo chamber, by design. On a final note, if you're a bunch of elites pumping out deep mind control in a big city, be on guard because you might get a visit from Wakey Wakey. Peace.